So we're back, everybody. We're back from Thanksgiving. We were just talking about that really quickly, and I can't not share. So I guess my question is, everybody, like, what did we do for Thanksgiving? Peter, did you have 100 people at your house?
We had a very low key but family oriented Thanksgiving. So had the in-laws and some immediate family, the kids all together, low key. We actually had the meal catered, which took the stress level down to a different level. It was just a nice, enjoyable holiday. And I'll tell you what, I think it's the season, but what better time to give gratitude for your family, for your friends, for your loved ones, for your blessings. So yes, I had a very enjoyable week last week.
I love it. Yeah. Congrats on a nice, smooth family holiday. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. And Jerry, how about yourself? I know you have 400 relatives live on your block. Did everybody gather?
Yeah, well, only 25 on the block, but another 50 or so within a couple miles. So there's that. But I love the idea because of my age. I'm getting to the point where while I love to cook turkey and all the sides and everything else, it's starting to get to be a chore. And I like the idea of catering so that like Peter, it's easier to be more grateful
than stressed.
You don't have to deal with it, right?
I will tell you, I think the key is we all had a couple of favorites that we thought were worth doing the homemade version. So stuffing, for example, some dinner rolls that my mother-in-law made.
There you go.
We had the personal touch, but then a lot of the heavy lifting was outsourced. So
well, that's what I love, the potluck. So we do that on Friday. We ask our cousins to bring either a leftover appetizer or a leftover dessert, because there's always a lot of those. And so we ask them to show up on Friday evening. And I try to tend the bar, but it's in my grandfather's house that he built in 1920. So it's the theme is come back to where we came from, kind of thing. And so we had 70 people do that, and it's not a big house, so it kind of bursts at the seams, but it's a way to catch up with so many people that you may not touch their lives every day, so at least once a year being able to catch up is pretty powerful.
I love it. Well, we're going to talk about the future. Everybody loves talking about the future. You guys ready to get started?
Let's talk about the future.
All right, here we go.
CXR Channel, our premier podcast for talent acquisition and talent management. Listen in as the CXR community discusses a wide range of topics focused on attracting, engaging, and retaining the best talent. We're glad you're here.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to the Recruiting Community Podcast show. We do weekly insights and updates in the form of conversation. I am your host as we move into the second part of kind of the holiday season here in the United States. I am your host, Nickel, and with me, I also have Nickel.
And Nickel?
Oh, that's us. Hey.
That's good. I'll open that bottle.
I thought you would appreciate that, Jerry. Look, today we're going to talk business velocity. It's never been this fast, and we suspect it's never going to be this slow again. So in addition to change happening at what we love to call a breathtaking pace, and that we think is actually going to speed up even more, right? With this, we got all of this AI this and AI that everywhere. How should recruiting be talking about harnessing the opportunity and sort of expanding its impact on the business? So today we've got our longtime friend, Peter Brooks of GDIT. We're going to be talking AI and role changes, creating a representative workforce, and of course, building competencies for recruiters, the things that they're going to need, sustainable careers and longevity within that. Two things first, though, a little housekeeping. We're streaming on the social. We've got YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and the Twitch, cxr.works/podcast to see future and past episodes. If you happen to be with us live, you're on LinkedIn. There's a little chat window on the side. You can just drop a note in there, say hello, introduce yourself to everybody, or you can ask questions of the audience, as well as our host today and our guest today. Quick reminder, it's an ad-free labor of love, but it does come with a plug. We're going to share that we have just released, there's a new research report that came out. We talked about this a few weeks ago, but we've just released some updates and blog. You've got some downloadables, and then we've got 2 blogs in a series that's currently out there now. You can catch all of the goodies out at cxr.works/research. So we encourage you to check that out. Jerry, anything you want to add to my long-winded intro?
No, I was fine.
Okay. Or I should have said nickel. I could have just said nickel. Hey, nickel. People coming in later like, nickel? All right. I'm going to welcome our guest. I'm going to go ahead and pull him out of the green room. There we are. Peter, welcome back. Let's get you in the spotlight.
Thank you.
There you are. It's good to see you, Peter.
It's great to see you guys. Last time I think we were all on a podcast, we were doing a whiskey tasting, I believe. So this one is before noon, or no, it's right around the noon hour here on the East Coast. So it's entirely sober, but great to see you both.
It was. Was it Oban?
Oban, yes, that's right. Good memory.
I remember.
That's a great memory.
I like a good drink. Can't be mad.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're making my liver growl. It's not even lunch yet. No growling. For those who don't know, Peter, VP Talent Acquisition and Mobility at General Dynamics Information Technology, GDIT. But prior to that, and we've known you for ages, you were the VP of Talent Acquisition at Protivity?
Protivity, yes.
Protivity,
correct.
Right. And then VP of T over at Northrop Grumman.
That's correct.
And if my memory serves, he's a poli-sci thinker and a design thinking doer. But we've loved this dude for years. Peter, I'm no good at it, but why don't you give us kind of your escalator pitch? Like, who is Peter? Why are we listening to you today?
Yeah, I mean, so it's interesting. I, like many of my peers, started the TA profession back before I knew it was actually a thing that you could do as a profession. And, spent about 10 years in TA and kind of moved in and out between talent acquisition and doing some consulting and doing sales and business development. And I realized that I just really loved the talent angle. I mean, first of all, you're at the pointy end of the spear when it comes to the growth of any organization. You've got access to C-level executives who care very much about their business sustainability and having the right talent to do the work. And I really love the operational cadence. It's always firing. You're always on point. There's always something new to learn. The last 4 years or so have been no exception to that rule. So yes, closing in now on almost 3 decades in the profession, and I've loved every minute of it. And I would love to continue this dialogue insofar as it serves the next generation of leaders and talent acquisition professionals coming up. Because it's been a great profession for me. I would love to have that opportunity available to people that are equally passionate about talent as I am.
Oh, I love that. Well, I have a couple of questions we want to talk about.
Sure.
And we can jump in because it's about a 20-minute conversation or so. We'll do our best to kind of stay on track. But I mentioned earlier in the intro, Peter, that AI is like everything's changing. It feels like everything's moving really, really quickly. Do you have any practical ways that recruiting teams, doesn't necessarily have to be leadership, right? But that's okay, that could really use that technology to make a bigger splash within their companies? And I don't mean just, signing a fat check over to like a Paradox or, some sort of, right, or integration point or new partner, as amazing as that may be. Is there a way you'd recommend to sort of use that tech to kind of make an impact within the organization?
Yeah, it's interesting. I sat down with my team several months ago to look at, how can we harness the power of AI and automation and machine learning in ways that expedite the hiring process, that facilitate the attraction of candidates into the process, that create better equities among people that might have had greater barriers to entry into the hiring process in the past. So all of those things. And I think the important thing for me is it's not a one size fits all. across the talent acquisition landscape, you've got early career talent and the way that that's handled. You've got executive on the other side of the equation. You've got executive hiring and the way that that works, experienced hiring, high volume plays. It's important, I think, to sit down and deconstruct those processes one by one, and then understand where is the best application for machine learning or automation or AI. And for me, I think it's really important to do that with a view towards how do you equip your recruiters then to take higher order, higher value faculties to the business to help get a better alignment, to get better business outcomes, to unleash the strength of what humans can do, while you're also leveraging the best of what machines can do for you. So I think that is a very important process to go through. And it's not, hey, we're going to do this once for the TA process and you're done. I think it's really important to understand what are the different channels, the different avenues, and handle them appropriately.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think we had a comment here that just said, well said, Peter, but I think that, you mentioned you've been doing this about 3 decades, right? And you're kind of rolling up on that. We see these cycles and these trends. We've been doing it a while.
Yes.
It's really interesting to see this emergence of TA leaders saying, and that same argument that we're just tired of the recruiters kind of falling to this rut of order takers.
Mm-hmm.
And being super responsive. And there's a lot of optimism, and at least I have a lot of optimism as well, of what AI might do, or automation technology might do for us. So I guess my follow-up question to you would be, in that same vein, that same struggle of trying to get away from reactive recruiting, right? Trying to be business partners. As you see sort of AI and automation rolling out, do you see any day-to-day aspects of the recruiting roles changing that lean that way?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's interesting if you think about the way that we used to recruit, back in the quote unquote old days, before we had digital tools, while we were faxing resumes around and all those things. Recruiters really came into the craft learning how to source and how to cold call into companies. They learned how to get very close to the business that they were supporting, whether that was an external, third party kind of vendor search, or whether it was internal corporate search. Because the most important thing you could do is understand what are the business requirements, what are the outcomes that we're shooting for, how do we look at the talent landscape and map that intelligently to what we're trying to accomplish here. Then we kind of went into a second phase in kind of the evolution of TA, at least in my opinion, where you still had that, but then you brought these digital tools online, and then you also had recruiters that were responsible on the one hand for that more strategic value-added work, but then they were, setting up interviews, they were formatting resumes so that they were proper on the page and all those kinds of things. And we've never quite abandoned that. And I think if you look at where recruiters spend their time, it's kind of like salespeople. You want salespeople in the sales process, talking to customers, right? I want recruiters out there talking either to their clients or their candidates. I don't want them spending reams and reams of time on repetitive, administrative, low value activity. And I think the one thing that's important is, that is a place where technology is custom made to come in and create better efficiencies, right? But I think if you do that in a vacuum, if you don't anticipate those role changes, if you don't equip your recruiters, if they've been used to spending half their days on all that administrative work, if you haven't equipped them to be talent advisors to the business, if you haven't equipped them to make candidate experience kind of optimized through the process, then you're gonna run into some walls. And I think the biggest thing for me that I want to avoid is I don't want to ever get into a situation where you're mass laying off recruiters because the skills that you have them doing have become outdated. So now is the time to prepare them for what's coming next, get the reps under the belt, bring the technology into play, and allow for really the magic to happen.
I love what you're saying. I think one of the issues that you're addressing is we spend so much time, and have for the last couple decades with technology, thinking about just-in-time recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
And that is shifting heavily towards the automation side. And if we step back just a little bit and think in terms of our investment in building pools of talent for the future,
Mm-hmm.
like we do for interns, for example. So many companies in the last 20 or 30 years have added value by looking at early career internships, if you will.
That's
But I
right.
think we're going to have to become more creative in thinking about underrepresented pools of talent that are out there and how we can invest in helping them become competitive in the future. And I know you're heavily engaged in both in a variety of ways in DE&I, and I think fundamentally we've lost our ability to really think for the long haul, and I think we need to recover that. And I think that's how I would elevate a lot of the recruiters out there.
I could not agree with that more, Jerry. And I think, there's been a lot of talk about DEI in the press and, companies taking different postures publicly right now. I think for companies out there that have inclusion and creating belonging for every person, every employee in their purview, and by the way, extending that into the candidate universe as well. Companies that do that are going to be successful in the future, and companies that don't are going to be behind the 8 ball from a talent perspective. I mean, when you look at the labor rate participation right now, obviously it plummeted. It fell off a cliff with COVID. 50% of those people retired. 20% of those people now are on disability. So you've got 70% of those people that exited the labor force that probably are never coming back. At the same time, you've got fertility rates that are far below a 2.1 replacement rate, which makes me very nervous about Medicare and Social Security, by the way. But even if you just look at it from a recruiting perspective and you look at the talent landscape, we are not going to have enough talent to do the work that we need to do. It's going to require reskilling. It's going to require opening the aperture for talent in a skills-based way. And it's going to require reaching into communities that have been historically underrepresented and bringing them into the fold at proportions that they exist in the market as a whole. And if you do those things, you will thrive. And if you don't do those things, you're going to be in a very bad position from a talent perspective.
Well, so you raised some really interesting points, Peter, because we're watching the replenishment rate of talent, right? And you do see a lot of organizations. I think Walmart and Ford, two of the latest of the headlines that are kind of changing their stance or changing, kind of pivoting a little bit for their DE&I sort of initiatives internally at the organization. So there's some concern, right? There's whether you lean one way or the other with regards to that topic. There's some concerns there about how that impacts business. I maintain that regardless of the organization's, I'm trying to be nonpartisan here, the organization's stance on how that DE&I program sort of plays out. I still maintain that a diverse team is key to success within an organization. Long term, there's studies about it, yada yada yada. But
studies are pretty unequivocal. Yeah,
there's a massive impact here, and it is a little frustrating to me to see this sort of private equity approach some of these organizations are taking. Oh, it's not making me money within this short span of time, then we're scrapping it for now. Like that, and I get the scramble, and I get this sort of interesting kind of pivot that we're watching kind of unfold. But coming all the way back to that, I guess, when we're talking about building, and we can just stick to recruiting. If you're building a diverse team of recruiters, are there any sort of maybe straightforward strategies that would help others to build a workforce that really does represent everybody? Is there any? I'm not looking for you to build out, big long strategy here, but can you share maybe a straightforward strategy for recruiters to help build that team or that workforce that really does have fair representation?
Yeah. So I would say I'm in the federal contracting arena, and every year we are required by the federal government to have affirmative action plans across our business. And those affirmative action plans are tied to the representation of different demographics in the population. And it's not saying that you dog ear jobs or that you have quotas of any kind. What it says is over time, if you have equitable hiring practices, fair hiring practices, you should generally look like the communities that you live and operate in. And so that's how they're predicated. The challenge historically has been, once a year, the EEO people, come through and they share all the data with the recruiting organization. And then you go about your business and, recruiters, and you know how it is. You're getting calls from clients, you're getting calls from candidates, you're negotiating offers. Within a few weeks, all of that data is kind of past tense. It's out of your kind of workflow. So what I would highly recommend is finding ways to build those kinds of plans into your applicant tracking system or your pipelining system, if you've got a CRM, for example, so that recruiters, when they open a job, can know immediately, hey, this is a job where we're underrepresented, whether it's by women or veterans or people with disabilities. And then you can leverage sourcing tools. You can leverage your ERGs. You can make sure that you're taking the time to bring the most robust and full talent pipeline possible to bear. And then, like any EEO organization, you're always going to have the best qualified candidate chosen at the end of that process. But
I love the fact that the core to this is transparency. That if you open a rec, it should be fully transparent how we look within the framework of that representation of the pools of talent that are out there, so that the recruiter can do the right things in terms of how they position adding to that pool.
That's right. And like, if I could, I know that, this is a topic right now that is rife with different political views and all those kinds of things. And I just want to kind of leave those to the side for a second and just say, like, if you let's take like maybe the least controversial element, okay, which is our veteran community. Our veterans have gone out, they've put their life, limb, and family obligations in the rear so they can put our country's interests at the forefront, right? And so I think we all generally believe that we should do the best job that we can to provide meaningful work opportunities for veterans when they come back into the private sector. If you're like me, if your experience is anything like mine, what you'll find is that veterans as a whole, especially if they're newly transitioning into the workforce, have much higher attrition rates in your population than non-veterans do. And there are a lot of reasons for that. The primary one being they're coming into a new environment. They're coming from a heavily prescribed career trajectory in the military, and they come out here to the private sector, and we're like, hey, you're the steward for your own career. Good luck. Knock yourself out. And they're like, well, wait, what? And so what we did at General Dynamics is we created, we call it the Military Transition Program, and MTAP, and we set up a program that has programmatic elements. It has veterans that are assigned as mentors for new veterans as they come in. And there's kind of a, hey, let's get you reoriented to the private sector and what a career outside the military looks like.
Yeah.
And for people that we put through, we started that program a couple of years ago. And for people that we put through that program, we had negligible attrition, almost zero attrition. And so, right. And so, when you talk about creating inclusive environments, again, you're not talking about doing anything that's untoward. You're not pitting one group against another group. You're just saying, look, different people from different backgrounds are going to need different kinds of assistance as they acclimate to your environment. So what you want to do is try to make that as robust and transparent as you can, provide the support that you can, and hopefully hold on to that talent that you're going to need. And again, in a completely talent constrained market, I think it would be impractical at best to ignore that.
Yeah. I think one element, and I'll circle us back, which I think is really interesting, that a lot of people who maybe cast aspersions at some organizations published, D&I numbers, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think there's an element, especially at the big organizations, that sometimes gets missed in that conversation. And Peter, you touched on it, but it's that representation in local markets.
Mhm.
So I think that that gets missed quite often in some of the
Right.
conversations, and that if you have, a facility or a footprint in a rural area, as well as in a very big organization, big city, right, tier one city or something like that,
Might
the
look very
ability
different.
to hire diversely in those markets is very different, right? So the opportunity to make those hires is very different, and is should be considered.
Well, my family, both my parents grew up in farms in Northwest Iowa, and I often would joke to them that they grew up in very diverse environments. They had Swedes and Danes and Dutchmen and Germans all in all in the community. So, but at that in that part of the country at that time, that was what diversity looked like. And I'm here in the DC metro area. It looks pretty different here than, for example, the environment my parents grew up in.
Yeah,
So
yeah, for sure.
that's okay.
Well, let's go back to, I love the little derail, right?
Maybe.
From a diversity standpoint. Let's go back. So from a skills for the future standpoint, right? We're talking about how recruiters can continue to sort of make an impact within the organization, leveraging AI. We're talking about automation and bringing that in. If you're
Mhm.
sort of looking forward, Peter, what skills do you think recruiters should be picking up now, should be doubling down on now to keep their careers thriving? Because we have a lot of automation coming. We have organizations that are implementing a lot of this technology
Oh,
already.
yep.
What do you tell your recruiters, and what do you tell other recruiters they should be kind of double clicking on now, investing in now to stay relevant?
Yeah, so I would say two things from a recruiting perspective, meaning your frontline recruiters, the ones that are out there working with the business every single day. I think it's essential that they build talent advisor capabilities. And, you can look at Gartner has good research on that. Obviously, John Vlastelica at the Recruiting Toolbox, who you guys are good friends with, he's done good work in this. I've spent the last year upskilling my team in that regard. And generally, just for the audience here, if you haven't spent a lot of time investigating that topic, we're talking about things like having business conversations with the line, not HR conversations, business conversations, and then using your TA acumen, really helping the business understand what trade-offs are available, what skills adjacencies should we be looking at, what kinds of development programs do we need to get the talent that we need in the door and successful. Those things I think are paramount, and they're things that right now humans can synthesize and do better at than machines in a lot of cases. And that kind of dialogue and the trust that's engendered, the judgment that needs to take place in that process, those are all human oriented, human designed elements. Those are things that I think people need to be equipped to do. And if you haven't started that, I would very much encourage people to start focusing on that. From a recruiting leadership perspective, the one thing I would say is that one thing I think as a rule we have not done very well as a profession. There are a couple, but one thing that we have not done very well is created meaningful, compelling business cases for technology investments relative to competing interests across the enterprise. Okay. So when I go in to pitch a software or a platform that I think we need to create efficiency to bring these tools in play, I think it's essential for people to understand it's not just you making that case.
Yeah.
People from supply chain are in there making their case. People from IT are in there making their case. You look across the business and you've got all these competing priorities. I don't think we've oftentimes taken the time to create the best business case we can so that we can win in that environment and bring that technology to bear for TA.
I think that skill. I think that's a skill all by itself for good leaders, is being able to
100%.
build that business case and communicate that effectively, and then argue in favor of it. I think that is a whole nother level that I think a lot of leaders, unfortunately, it's a lot of trial by fire I think for them.
That's right. And I think across HR and in TA, a lot of times we can get stovepiped into the way we think about things. Yeah. And so we think, okay, well, it's a no-brainer. This decision kind of makes itself. But what we don't understand is like, look, the CFO is going to have to make decisions across a variety of competing financial requests. And if we don't make one that's compelling, that ties to business imperatives that are important to the C-suite and to shareholders, then we're missing the boat. And to your point, I think we haven't a lot of time focused on that as a real skill to develop as a leader. I think it's imperative that we develop that skill.
Yeah, love that.
Yeah, 100%. So I guess take us out with a prediction. How do you think Peter AI is going to keep changing recruiting and business speed?
Yeah. Well, you kind of led off with a tip of the hat to Carla Harris, who was a managing director at Morgan Stanley, who said that the velocity of business has never been this fast and will never be this slow again. And that is, I think, 100% true. Now, I'm old enough with the 3 decades under my belt. I'm old enough to remember when Monster said, hey, we are going to disintermediate recruiting. Recruiters won't be required anymore. I've heard variations on that theme throughout my career. I'm hearing it now, again, these days. I think like take a deep breath, feel your feet on the ground. Human beings are not going away. And there are things that we do that you would not want to trust a machine with, even if the machine can do it, right? So then the real question is, what do we let the machines do that take administrative burden off our plates, that take the kind of less value added components to our role and make it faster and better, and then take the human element and apply that energy in a way that has much more transformative value to the business. That I think is the future. I think now we have an opportunity to prepare for it. And as a talent person, I think I'd be remiss if I didn't look at the workforce aspirationally in some measure and say, look, people find value in work. People find, there's a poet named John Donahue that says that workplace is a place where your soul can attain visibility. And I love that way of thinking about work. It's not just about making $1. It's not just about showing up 9 to 5. It's about bringing the best of your gifts to the table. And I think machines, if they take, at least for me, a lot of the less fun stuff and take care of that in ways that do it better than I could ever do it, that's great. And free me up to do the things that I do exceedingly well.
Yeah, I haven't seen any automation come take the stuff we really enjoy. Those of us who've been doing it for long enough, the work we really enjoy away.
That's right.
I just don't see it. I see them coming in to take the crap that we're bad at anyway,
right? Or
are too busy to get to.
The place that's rife for human mistakes and errors, and machines can do more quickly. Yeah, we don't have to be John Henry down in the coal mine, like racing against the steam engine. Let the steam engine do its work, and then let humans come in and do what we do best.
Yeah. Well done. Well, Peter, we asked this of all of our guests at the end of the show. If you were going to write a book today about this topic, this pace of technology, keeping up, recruiting evolution, what would the title of that book be?
It's an exciting time to be alive. It is an exciting time to be alive. And for all the crises that we're looking at across the globe, for all the stress that we feel every single day, we're at a monumental, unbelievable point in human history. We've got all the advantage of technology. We've got, health systems that are better than any human beings have ever enjoyed in their history. We're racing into space. There's like one thing after another. And so what I would just say is, yes, the pace is exhausting. Yes, change can be daunting. But there's no better time to be alive than right now. And so take full advantage of this time that we're in.
Yeah, if you can remove the political antics, it's not so bad living in interesting times. But you put that again, I'm exhausted. Like
100%. And look, I think most human beings are oriented to help other human beings, and so I kind of leave the politics to other people, and I'll just focus on what I consider doing the right thing.
Yeah, let's say roughly half. Let's say roughly half of people. So, Peter, present company excluded. Who do you give a copy, your first signed book to? Who gets the first signed copy?
This is going to sound totally corny, but it's absolutely true. I give the first signed copy to my mom. My mom is my hero. So
I love that.
I would give the first signed copy to her.
Oh man,
Very
just
cool.
grabs your heart and just twists it, doesn't he?
I've got one of those posts on LinkedIn that you can focus as your feed, and I've got a great story about my mom and her service in Vietnam and her lifelong service to people's mental health and physical well-being. Like I said, she's my hero. So I do a lot of what I do to try and live up to her example.
I love it. Well, Peter, much gratitude for you. We know you're a super busy guy, and we're just grateful to be able to get you on and talk for a little bit, man. And have a wonderful, I know we'll talk to you, but have a wonderful rest of the year for those who may not get to see you.
Same to you. Great seeing you. And Jerry, a special thanks to you for helping me kick off an offsite several months ago too, where your insights,
My pleasure.
especially across the entire membership, you've got a unique perspective to bring. And you fueled a very, very healthy dialogue across my team. So appreciate everything, and always great to see you too.
Love it. Jerry's making house calls. We love it.
When he shows up in the Airstream one day, then I'll know I've arrived.
We'll do that.
The trick is getting him to stay just one day with that. That's all right, everybody. Have a great rest of your week. We'll see everybody next time.
Yeah, sounds good. Cheers.
Thanks for listening to the CXR channel. Please subscribe to CXR on your favorite podcast resource and leave us a review while you're at it. Learn more about CXR at our website, cxr.works, facebook.com and twitter.com/careercrossroads, and on Instagram @careerxroads. We'll catch you next time.